Greetings in the name of Yahuwah and his son Yahusha Mashiach. My name is Malak Shalomo. Today is the 25th of December 2023. It's 21:47 p.m. Eastern Time, and I'm gonna do a little technical analysis and trade setup for the 26th of December 2023. So I'm just gonna go over here.
Absorption RTY.
I'm gonna go over here like the month in review, just on the pivots and Camarilla setups. So we opened
Sweep
here
and
at
Q.
around
Absorption sellers and Q.
we opened here at around let's see 46.22.75 this month. The beginning of the month right there. So let's see here, I'll take this off. Right, so we had the pivot levels here. This is the top central pivot. This is Camarilla S3. It's in a higher value relationship. Camarilla S3. This is Camarilla F R3 right here at roughly 47.81.25. That's the monthly Camarillas. Let me just make sure that level 47.39.25 actually. So that's monthly Camarilla R3 47.39.25. Camarilla S3 is at 45.16.17. So the central pivot is here at 45.06 and the bottom central pivot is at 44.45.13. Right, so that's the central pivots for the month. And within the central pivot thesis, there's certain percentages that get certain levels that get hit in comparison to where it opens with the central pivot range, right? So if we open above the central pivot range and we don't touch the central pivots, we're most likely gonna get a touch of Camarilla. Sorry, not Camarilla, but floor pivot R1, which is right here. And we did get that push through at Camarilla. Sorry, not Camarilla, but floor pivot R1 at 47.49.50. Right, we had a push above here and we made a high right there of like 48.30.75. We came back, we touched that monthly floor pivot R1, and now we're pushing off of that, right? So most likely we're gonna get to R2 at 48.51, which is also in sync with Camarilla R4 at 48.50.91, right? So most likely I'm thinking that's gonna happen before the end of the year, before the end of the month, because there's a high percentage chance, I forgot the exact percentage, but when we don't touch the central pivot range when we open, let me just point that out again. That's the central pivot range right there between this level top central and the central pivot, which is the blue line. We open above that, we maintained above that, we never touched it, rallied up to R1. We're supposed to close above R1 and probably get to R2. There's a high percentage of getting to R2. So I'm thinking 48.51 is a high probability trade to go long from, I guess, whatever strategy you're using to get to 48.51. That's probably a high probability trade. It's supposed to be low volume tomorrow and stuff like that. So who knows what's going to happen. So let's go down to the 1 hour chart and let's start with the central pivots. I have a bunch of lines here, which is my Wyckoff TV lines and levels. So we have an uptrust here at 48.31, which is basically around the high. We have a test here at 48.21.50. So firstly, this was starting off like a distribution setup where we have the preliminary stop, we have the buying climax, we have the automatic reaction, then we have an uptrust here, another uptrust, and we got this big flush down. Right now, if it was supposed to continue as a distribution, it's supposed to break this level here, the bottom of the automatic reaction. Probably if we do get these pullbacks, we were supposed to come back down and retest and head down further, right? So with the stoppage right there, the automatic reaction and getting the push up to previous week's high, right? Getting a retest here. So this is developing like a reaccumulation, right? From this point on. So let me just open this up a little bit here from this point. Right, so with this push down here, with getting support at this automatic reaction, we could now consider this like the selling climax right here. This would be the automatic rally. This would be the secondary test. And now we're going into phase B where we get that push out of the range, a little upthrust action right there. Hovering above, right above the automatic rally. And now we're pushing out, right? So this is a really quick, if it's like you considering it a reaccumulation, it's a very quick reaccumulation. Buyers are strong and we're already pushing out of the auction range from the automatic rally, which would be at 47.94. Let me see what's the high here. 47.94.75, right? So going above that level here, we're moving into like, you know, phase D of like a reaccumulation. So without any real retest here in phase B,
stops and Q
right?
buy.
So this would be the start of phase B, and we never get a pullback. Let me just use the arrows here. This is like the pullback right there. Right, we're supposed to get a pullback down to these levels in phase B, and it's supposed to be volatile where you get these pullbacks, right? From this level here, you're supposed to get a pullback around the secondary test, or at least a test somewhere in the middle here to get buyers to go back up, right? And then probably have a thermal shake or spring, right? That'll test these levels here. And then we could push up like outside of the range, back up to the creek as they call it. But this is so strong that is basically like a V reversal, if you really look at it, right? So it's basically a V reversal here, right? So that's indicative of strong buying. So we're going with what the market is saying, which I need to do more often. And let's see here. This is basically a retest here. Like after we break out, we have a retest of this level here. I'll label it lowest point of support, sorry. And that's basically our retest right there. And then we could head up to like 48.50, which today's weekly R1 is at 48.52, right? Now, let's see where we open here. Now the central pivots is in a higher value relationship. Let me just point that out. Right, so that's the central pivot right there. 47.93. Bottom central is 47.87. Top central is 47.99.25. And let me just bring that into focus. The prior central pivot range was down here. Right, so I'll just point out the pivot level, which was at 47.37.25. So we're in a higher value relationship here. The pivots are much more narrow, right? That's indicative of like of a pending breakout. So let me just make that bigger. Let me keep R1 in focus, right? So we have an open here where we opened above the top central pivot, which was at 47.99.25. We opened here at 48.25, right? So there's no test of the central pivot range, which is very bullish. And that's a high percentage that we could get back up here to 40 to R1, and possibly let's see here, before the end of the week we could probably get to R2, which is 48.74.50, right? So if it's a Santa rally and we're looking for big moves, the floor pivots and the central pivot range is kind of showing
Stops
that
NQ sell.
that's what will happen if, or could possibly happen. It has a potential to happen if we don't pull back and touch these ranges, right? If we don't come back to this level here at, let's say, the open and the central pivot, especially the central pivot at 47.93, if we don't come back to this level here, we could definitely get up to R1 and further, which R1 is 48.52.75, right? So this is setting up bullish. Let's look at the Camarilla pivots, right? So open within range here between R1 and S1, and the Camarilla setup on the weekly is in a overlapping higher value relationship, which is moderately bullish. So Camarilla S3 is sitting here at 47.81.19. Camarilla R3 is at 48.29.25. Camarilla R4 is at 48.53.50. So that's kind of coinciding with R1, right? So we have a nice target up there at Camarilla R4 and R1 as a double pivot zone on the weekly, right? So we got to get through Camarilla R3 first at 48.29.50. So that's an area to look for resistance. Yesterday's high, or previous week's yesterday's high last Friday was 48.21.75. So that's the first area we could look to target. Then we're going to target Camarilla R3. I think this was the previous week's high, which was at 48.30, right? Yep, 48.30.75. So Friday's high, previous week's high, Camarilla R3. And then we're clear to go here up to R1. So let's see how price opens tomorrow if we remain bullish. Right now we opened very bullish, nice bullish candle here. Let's see how many points.
Stops NQ buy. Stops NQ buy.
Let's see how much points we moved in the ETH. So 13 points in the ETH on the open candle. So that's cool. Let's go down to the 5-minute chart and take a look at the daily pivot levels. Alright, so let's take off this
Stops
stuff
NQ
here.
buy. Stops NQ buy.
We're gonna start with the money zone,
Stops NQ sell.
or the market profile, I should say. Well, let's take off those VWAP bands. Alright, so the market profile from last week. Let's see, the value area high was here. That's the value area low. So this week, today, we have the value area high for tomorrow is at 47.98.85. This is the POC area
Stops
here at
NQ
roughly,
buy. Stops NQ buy.
let's see,
Stops NQ buy.
47.90
Absorption
to
buyers NQ.
47.90 to roughly 47.88.27. And let's see where value area low is. Right, so value area low is here at 47.85, right? That's that white line right there. Right, so that's in an overlapping higher value relationship. The pivot levels, not the pivot levels, my bad. The value area is much narrower compared to last Friday. So let's see what's the range on that. What's the range difference?
Stops NQ sell.
So last Friday it was 27 points. And on the 26th is going to be 14 points, right? So almost half of the range, right? So tighter range is indicative of breakouts, and we opened above the value area high, right? So value area high is at 47.98. We opened at what is it, 4825. So we opened bullish. We're sticking to the thesis of looking for higher value relationship for higher value. So let's see here. We're gonna move on to the pivots. Right, so the pivots we open actually on the daily pivots here, we open below the central pivot range, but quickly on the first candle broke through the central pivot range. So we have a touch of the central pivot range, right? Because we broke out from below. Now this is let's see, it's in a higher value relationship, the central pivot range. Yesterday's central pivot was at 47.82, and today's central pivot is at 48.0392. So that's a higher value relationship. We opened below the central pivot range, which was breaking that thesis of higher value,
Stops NQ
or
buy.
to seek higher value, but we quickly regained above that central pivot range. So we'll look at that as like a touch of the central pivot range. Still bullish. Potential target here is 48.31 and on R1. So that's a high probability target. Seeing that we have a higher value relationship, we opened above, well, opened below, but pushed above with a big buy candle. If we stay above this range here, 48.03, around above that central pivot range, if we open above, we should get to R1 and possibly even R2 in comparison to like how the weekly was breaking down. We could probably get to like 48.52, which is the weekly R1, right? R1. So we could push through these levels. Yesterday's high, floor pivot R1 48.31, and possibly get up to 48.40.25, probably even beyond. Maybe if we get super bullish, we could get up to like floor pivot R1 on the weekly, which is R3 on the daily, 48.49.50. Right, so it all depends on how we do tomorrow. In the ETH, we're opening above it, so let's see if we stay above, probably get up to like around yesterday's high, or let's see where the Camarillas are. Alright, so we'll take this off. Right, so the Camarilla setup is in an overlapping higher value relationship, which is moderately bullish. We're opening kind of in the upper range of it here. It's probably like around, well, we're probably sitting around like R1, R2. This is R3 here at 48.15.40. Camarilla R4 is at 48.25.60. And these are the levels we gotta break through, right? And putting back the floor pivots. R1 here at 48.31. So we gotta break through these levels here. These are the resistance levels, right? All of these are the resistance levels to get through to go bullish and probably get up to possibly 48.52, which is the weekly R1. Let's see what range that's gonna be. If we open at 48, well, 50 points, right? So yeah, it's roughly 50 points. If we get up to like 48.59, 48.49, 48.50, so roughly 50 points, right? So we could do that if we get bullish tomorrow. We could definitely do that. So let's see how that goes. As far as setups, let's see here. If we're using the cams, the overlapping higher value relationship, a breakout from R3 to R2, that'll give us 24 points. Let's see if we risk like about 4 points right there. So if we open somewhere around here, a breakout of R3, go long from here, and just try and break these levels. Just try and hold to break these levels, you know. And Let's see if we do come back to test the central pivot range at the open. Then that's also a buy, risking 5 points. Could potentially try and get back up here to R1 at 48.31. That's 27 points. If we do take that buy at the central pivot range. And if it comes back all the way to Camarilla S3, then that's also another buy area, risking 4 points, coming down here to 47.91, 91.25. Entry is somewhere around here. Let's see, just above Camarilla S3 at 47.95.75. And with that, trying to get a target to Camarilla R3, which is 19.75 points, right? So that's basically my setups there that I'm possibly looking at. Would I trade tomorrow? I'm not really sure, man. Not really sure if I'm gonna trade tomorrow, but just doing the exercise of, you know, practicing my technical analysis and my trade setups and stuff like that. So if I do trade tomorrow, that's probably what I'm looking at. So I'm looking at this long from Camarilla S3, along from the central pivot range to possibly R1, which would be right here, right, risking 4 points right there. And let's see what else. Oh, and a breakout of Camarilla R3, which would be along from here, risking 4 points and trying to get to possibly R2 or R3. So let's see, let's leave it at the wide target here, the wide target, which is at 48.49. That's floor pivot R3, so would have to get through Camarilla R4, R1, floor pivot R1, previous week's high, R2 at 48.40, and at R2 that's when I'll start looking for any kind of real rejections to take profit and stuff like that. That'll be 23 points up there from the entry. So that's basically and if we go really on a trend day, then up here at 33 points, right? So just being conservative around like possibly 48.40. And if it starts to stall here, then at R1, let's see, let's move this. That'll be 14.75 points, right? So that's basically the setups right there. So just leave this as a possible trend day. Let's see, let's make this a little bigger. Yep, and that's basically my my trade setups right there. All right, y'all. So it's Malak Shalomo, and you all trade safe and stay blessed.